of kings and queens thousands of years ago. In the dead of midnight, a chilling stillness enveloped the castle, blanketing the sleeping kingdom. The cold wind snaked through the cracks of the window, carrying only the sound of one's own breath, while the ancient stone walls seemed to shiver in the darkness. An elderly scientist entered the king's silent chamber, his face illuminated by a strange, flickering light, as if he knew tonight's events would not merely be unusual, but something history would never truly record. The king, who had conducted countless extraordinary scientific experiments in his realm, had now decided upon one final trial and attempt to breach the boundary between human minds and dreams. He believed that if he could penetrate the depths of a person's consciousness, he could uncover not only the schemes of his enemies, but the hidden truths of the future itself. Yet, this medieval experiment, attempting to extract truth through dreams, was perilously unpredictable, and he refused to acknowledge its potential consequences. These scientists whispered cautiously, "Majesty, this is extremely dangerous. Trying to open the doors of a human mind may not only unleash their deepest fears, but could also ripple through the kingdom itself." The king smiled, a hint of arrogance in his eyes. "Fear is for the weak. We live in an age where only courage opens the doors to truth." The plan involved a peculiar contraption, designed to be placed on the subject's head, capable of connecting directly to their dreams. The device, an intricate fusion of metal and leather, had taken nearly 3 years to construct, yet its efficacy remained uncertain. The king had initially intended to test it on himself, but his advisors forbade it. Instead, he selected a servant, described as fearless and daring, to undergo the trial. The device was secured atop the servant's head. The metal gears began to turn, and the apparatus glowed faintly. The king stood silently behind, observing. At first, nothing happened, but within minutes, the servant's eyes began to shimmer with an unnatural light. His breath quickened, erratic and panicked. "Your Majesty, I see things," the servant cried in terror. But before anyone could react, the device shuddered violently. The metallic worries seemed to echo the servant's own subconscious. Fierce, suddenly, his body froze entirely. The king, though gripped by fear himself, could not intervene. He knew that if this trial succeeded, it could rewrite the very course of history. Then the unthinkable occurred. The device began to generate an extraordinary energy surge. Not just the servant's dreams, but the very air of the castle thickened with darkness. Even the wind that normally breezed through the windows seemed to halt, as if the entire castle had become a silent, living tomb. In the servant's eyes, strange, flickering colors, down screens, blues, reds manifesting the deepest, most terrifying recesses of his mind. The king watched in horror as visions of fear, greed, and failure spilled out from the servant's consciousness, taking tangible, twisted forms. The images escaped the boundaries of his mind, filling the room with shadowy shapes, men, birds, creatures, all grotesquely alive yet dreamlike. The other inhabitants of the castle rushed in, but what they witnessed defied description. A shadowed spectacle, hovering between nightmare and reality, engulfed the chamber. One whispered, "Are these real, or are we losing our minds?" The king held his breath, a fear in his chest he had never felt before. He realized that connecting directly to a human mind was no trivial endeavor. It was a perilous gate that, once opened, might never close. The servant's body trembled violently as he screamed, "These are not mine. None of this is mine." But the gears of the device, made of cold, unyielding iron, suddenly snapped, and the chaotic visions ceased as abruptly as they had begun. Smoke and darkness filled the chamber, leaving only a haunting stillness behind. The king understood then that his attempt to leave a mark on history had ended in a peculiar failure. His desire to uncover truth through dreams had revealed only terror and a bitter lesson. Some mysteries were never meant for human understanding. In the following days, the servant was freed from the apparatus, yet he was no longer the same man. His eyes bore strange scars, and the horrors of his dreamscape lingered in his memory, replaying endlessly. The king, too, comprehended that the device he had created had not merely opened the doors of a human mind, it had unleashed fear itself, and they all had to endure its aftermath. Even now, at night, shadows like serpents slithered through the castle corridors. No one could say whether these phantoms were real or remnants of the servant's tormented dreams. The king's device never functioned again. History recorded it as a bizarre scientific failure, a tale of terror and caution, a reminder that some doors are never meant to be opened.
Days passed in uneasy silence. The castle, though outwardly serene, carried an intangible tension within its stone walls. Courtiers whispered about shadows that seemed to linger longer than natural, and servants reported glimpses of figures that vanished when approached. The king, however, remained obsessed. Though he publicly declared the experiment a failure, in private he studied the broken apparatus, determined to understand its secrets. The servant, once freed, was confined to a chamber near the highest tower. He spoke little, his eyes distant, haunted by images of impossible creatures, twisted landscapes, and the faces of strangers that were somehow familiar. He trembled at the sound of the wind or the flicker of candlelight, seeing in every shadow fragments of his own nightmares. One night, the king, unable to resist, entered the chamber to speak to him. "Tell me," he said softly, "what did you see?" The servant's lips quivered. It is more than I can say. Dreams, dreams within dreams, the world itself seemed to bend, to live, to watch me. I saw doors opening where none should exist, and faces that were not human, yet all too real. And the fear is alive. The king listened, enraptured and horrified in equal measure. In the depths of the servant's eyes, he glimpsed the infinite possibilities of the human mind. The device, though broken, had shown him a truth: reality and imagination were not separated by a simple line. But with such knowledge came a price. Determined, the king convened a secret council of scholars and alchemists. "We must rebuild it," he declared. "We will master the connection between dreams and mind. Only then can we uncover the secrets hidden from all of history." The scholars were hesitant. "Majesty, the previous trial nearly destroyed the servant's sanity. We cannot predict the consequences. We may awaken forces beyond our understanding," one warned. The king's eyes burned with obsession. "Fear has never guided discovery. We must proceed." Preparations began anew. Strange metals were forged, alchemical substances synthesized, and intricate gears designed to finer specifications. Candles burned day and night in the castle halls, and the quiet hum of arcane machinery became the castle's constant companion. The servant, still haunted, was consulted for guidance, though his warnings were often incoherent murmurs of nightmares. Finally, the device was ready again. The king, now driven to near madness, insisted on observing from a hidden chamber as the servant was seated beneath the apparatus. The air crackled with anticipation, and a thick tension pressed upon all present. When the device activated, the castle seemed to inhale. Shadows deepened unnaturally, and the servant's eyes widened, reflecting colors beyond the known spectrum. The machine whirred and vibrated, linking with the servant's subconscious. At first, glimpses of familiar dreams appeared, memories of childhood, fleeting joys, but quickly, they twisted into landscapes that defied reason. Forests of bones, rivers of smoke, skies filled with screaming shapes. The king realized, in a sudden wave of horror, that the previous trial had only scratched the surface. Dreams were not simply reflections of the mind, they were dimensions that could bleed into reality. The servant's fear manifested outwardly, tangible and grotesque. Figures stepped from his subconscious into the chamber, their forms ephemeral yet horrifyingly precise. The courtiers screamed, fleeing into the hallways, only to find corridors stretching impossibly, bending and folding like a living labyrinth. The castle itself seemed to respond, walls breathing, doors vanishing and appearing elsewhere. Even the king's chamber quivered, as if reality itself was unraveling. Through it all, the servant's voice rang out, trembling and desperate, "Stop it. Stop it before it consumes us all." But the king, blinded by ambition, could not. He pressed forward, trying to observe, to understand, to control. Yet the more he tried, the stronger the manifestations became. Creatures of shadow whispered in languages unknown, some pleasing, some terrifying. The air was thick with the scent of iron, decay, and something indescribable, something older than the walls themselves. Hours, or perhaps days, for time seemed fractured, passed in this nightmarish state. The servant convulsed under the apparatus, his mind a conduit for forces the king could not comprehend. And then, suddenly, everything halted. The machine shuddered violently and exploded in a burst of light and sound, sending everyone sprawling. The shadows vanished, and the castle returned to its former, silent state. But nothing was the same. The servant, though alive, was now almost entirely unrecognizable. His mind had fractured, he muttered constantly, glimpsing horrors invisible to others. The king, exhausted and trembling, understood that he had crossed a boundary no mortal should traverse. The experiment had succeeded in showing him ultimate truth, yet it had cost almost everything to witness it. In the aftermath, the castle was forever marked. Shadowed corners and strange whispers haunted the halls. Scholars refused to enter the inner chambers, and the broken device was locked away, hidden from all but the king himself. Travelers and servants spoke of inexplicable phenomena, fleeting figures in the corridors, sudden cold drafts that froze the blood, and the occasional scream echoing from rooms long abandoned. The king, though his curiosity remained, no longer sought to activate the device. He spent his days in silence, contemplating the dangers of knowledge, the fragility of the human mind, and the consequences of ambition unchecked by caution. The servant remained in isolation, a living testament to the peril of opening doors that were meant to stay closed. Generations passed. The story of the device became legend, whispered as a warning. Scholars debated its truth, historians argued its plausibility, yet the castle retained its eerie aura. Shadows moved in ways that defied reason, and dreams, both sweet and nightmarish, sometimes seemed to leak from the castle walls into the minds of those who slept nearby. And even now, long after the king and his servant are gone, some say that on moonless nights, the echoes of that experiment can still be felt. Shadows twist unnaturally, and the faint hum of the ancient machine can be heard, as if urging the curious to remember, some knowledge, once pursued, is never forgotten, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed.